Hi, I'm Lisa Smith, Executive Director of the Natural Areas Association. And on behalf of the Board of Directors and staff of the NAA, I'd like to welcome you to the 2020 Natural Areas Conference, Sierra to Sagebrush, Integrating Management and Stewardship Across Landscapes. This is our first all virtual conference, and I can assure you it's a new experience for us as it is for you. Our conference team had a great program in place for you as we entered late spring. And when faced with the decision to go virtual, the deciding factor was the need to bring our community together to share important scientific information and stay connected to one another. Our staff and board of directors stepped up to the challenge as they've done before, and here we are today, about to embark on a week of clicking and scrolling and zooming. We hope that you'll find this virtual conference preserves all of the value and depth and breadth of content you've come to know and expect, or that the all online format allows those of you who are newcomers to experience and share it for the first time. Of course, not every aspect of the NAA's traditional face-to-face conference can translate to the online world, but going virtual offers us some fresh advantages and opportunities, including reaching a much wider audience than a typical in-person conference, allowing us to spread critical information much farther, to broaden our education efforts and open avenues to potential and new strategic partners to further our common mission. And speaking of partners, we're here today because of them. I'd like to express our gratitude to the many partners who provided financial and in-kind support that not only resulted in a stellar program this year, but provided the means necessary to transition from an in-person event to a virtual one. The U.S. Forest Service, the Bureau of Land Management's Plant Conservation and Restoration Program, the Colcom Foundation, CAL FIRE, the Sierra Nevada Conservancy and the California Tahoe Conservancy, Bear Corporation, and the Carnegie Museum of Natural History, all provided underwriting for this conference. And the staff of the U.S. Forest Service, BLM's Plant Conservation and Restoration Program, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, the U.S. Geological Survey, University of California, Reno, University of California, Davis, University of Nevada, Reno, Sierra Nevada Conservancy, the Desert Research Institute, the Western Aspen Alliance, and the Tahoe Institute for Natural Sciences, all are partner organizations that provided staff time to developing and promoting the program. We could not have done this without all of you, so thank you. We've learned a great deal taking this conference online, and while we will someday soon be offering face-to-face opportunities again, fingers crossed, we're adding this new tool to our toolbox as another way to get important information in your hands. So stay tuned for more virtual programming coming from NAA. And if you're new to our organization, this is just what we do. We're an outreach and communications organization that has supported natural areas practitioners for almost 50 years. We promote science-informed land management, and we use a number of outlets to connect information and resources to those that need it. We do this through our annual conference, our webinar series, our regional field workshops, our Natural Areas Journal, and a community of professionals who conserve and preserve natural areas and support one another in their efforts by sharing their knowledge. This conference will serve as a wonderful introduction to the NAA's mission, our work, and our dedicated members. And please visit us at our NAA exhibit booth to learn more. And with any luck, we'll be together again next September in Duluth, Minnesota, where our partners at the Minnesota Science and Natural Areas Program will be hosting the 48th Natural Areas Conference. They have more information for you at their exhibit space too, so spend some time there. And the call for proposals is already open. So consider giving a presentation at next year's conference. Before moving on from NAA, I'd like to recognize and thank the passionate, dedicated members of our board of directors. The organization's very fortunate to have these 20 individuals who care deeply about your work. They volunteer their time to lead this organization. Be sure to reach out to any of them, learn more about what they do and why they do it. Our board members have board tags associated with each of their profiles, so you should be able to find them on the conference platform. And there are a few other people here at NAA that care a whole lot about what you do, and that's our staff. Our staff deserve a huge thanks. They are a small but mighty team of hardworking, smart, and dedicated individuals who didn't hesitate to take on the challenge of organizing this virtual conference in less than 6 months. You'll get to meet a few of them in the next few minutes. And by now you know that the conference platform opened October 1st, at which time you were able to view and comment on 40 pre-recorded presentations, connect with presenters. We've been seeing great conversations happening on the platform. Explore the exhibitor space and online job fair and network with your colleagues. So keep on doing that. This week, the conference is live and it runs through the 16th, which is Friday. It will include so much more real-time offerings like the live plenary presentations, 3 symposia, a live poster session, steward circles, campfire conversations, and more real time with exhibitors. And then there's some fun and relaxing activities that you can take advantage of in the lounge. You'll be hearing more about each of these opportunities throughout the next 4 days of the conference. Be sure to spend some time with the conference schedule and note that the conference doesn't end on Friday. We've got 4 more live symposia with interactive discussions scheduled through November 3rd. And every bit of this important and timely content from this conference will remain available for viewing and sharing for the next 12 months. And last but not least, there are 2 special people I'd like to introduce you to who will be very much a part of this week. Amy Wills and Moira McGinty-Kloss are our conference managers and will be providing you support and information throughout the duration of the conference. This year's conference theme is Sierra to Sagebrush, integrating management and stewardship across landscapes, focusing especially on the unique ecological and management dynamics of the Nevada-California borderlands. This is particularly timely as wildfires, many human-caused, continue to ravage the Western US during the worst year of wildfires on record. Our first plenary speaker is Vicki Christensen, who as Chief of the US Forest Service leads more than 28,000 permanent employees in stewarding 193 million acres of national forests and grasslands, supporting the world's largest forestry research organization and working with states, tribes, and others to sustain all forests so that they can benefit all of our citizens today and in the future. Over her 39-year career, she has accumulated vast experience in natural resource and wildland fire management. Her commitment to the core values of the Forest Service is evident in the priorities she sets for the agency. Vicki recorded her plenary presentation in August when wildfires were in full force. She took time to speak to you all about the program she champions for the agency, Shared Stewardship. And we're glad she did because it would have been challenging to pull her away this week for the conference given the heavy load the agency is carrying right now. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Chief Vicki Christensen.
Hi, it's a pleasure to have the opportunity to say a few words at this conference. I love the topic of the conference because it spans at landscape scale. You know, the Sierra Front is known for its grandeur. It's where the Great Basin and the Sierra Nevada intersect together with all of their interrelated social, economic, and ecological dimensions. These landscapes of transition have been conjoined for thousands of years by rivers, by migrating wildlife, by American Indian travel routes, and now by highways and the people who use them. The landscapes that we manage and the people who live in them are interdependent. They depend on each other for their health and well-being across ecosystems and ecoregions. So I love this topic, Sierra to Sagebrush, integrating management and stewardship across landscapes. You know, it highlights the needs to approach the landscape we manage and the challenges we face at scale. This is the essence of our shared stewardship approach, and I'm happy to report that we now have 18 shared stewardship agreements with both the state of Nevada and the state of California included in that. we are engaging with both states. And I hope this conference will help others join in at landscape scale management of our natural areas. So where to start? Shared stewardship is the culmination of decades of developments in land management across the United States. It is based on the commitment our nation made long ago to conserving forests and grasslands and other natural resources for all the benefits that people get from them: wood, water, wildlife, wilderness, carbon storage, outdoor recreation, jobs and economic opportunities, and so much more. Our mission statement at the Forest Service captures the gist of this: to sustain the health, diversity, and productivity of the nation's forests and grasslands for the benefit of current and future generations. But our ability to fulfill our mission is now at risk. Challenges to the health, diversity, and productivity of the nation's forests and grasslands include regional drought, catastrophic wildfires, and epidemics of insects and disease, all made worse by a changing climate. Vast areas of forests and grassland ecosystems are at risk from degradation by invasive species, or in the case of sagebrush systems, habitat loss and encroachment by woody species. Tens of millions of acres of forested watersheds across the country are also at risk from fragmentation and outright loss due to land conversion. 80 million acres are at risk from wildfire on the National Forest System alone. Hundreds of millions of acres of forest land in other ownerships are also at risk. The risks from wildfire come from ownerships across shared landscapes: drought, invasive species, and epidemics of insects and disease. None of these respect borders and boundaries. The risks are always shared. We truly are all in this together. So these risks have been building for decades. Take wildfire, for example. From the 1970s to the 1990s, the average annual area burned nationwide by wildfire was about 3.2 million acres. Today, the 10-year average is more than double, about 6.8 million acres. Now, we all know that the right kind of fire is a necessary treatment in many landscapes, but more of these acres are becoming catastrophic wildfire. And climate change has expanded the duration of wildfire activity. So we no longer talk about our fire season, but rather the fire year. Since 1999, both California and Nevada have recorded wildfire sizes that have broken records. And again, we are facing a huge wildfire events across the nation, particularly in California, as I record this today, with devastating consequences. It was just 2 years ago, the Camp Fire in the Sierra foothills took 85 lives. It was the worst American wildfire in terms of loss of life in 100 years. For decades, we have been wrestling with challenges like drought and wildfire, like forest mortality, like invasive species, like the loss of working forests, the loss of biodiversity. The challenges cross borders and boundaries, so the solutions have to be an all lands, all hands. The solution will come from standing together across shared landscapes and meeting the challenges through our collective partnerships and Over the last several years, we have developed a framework for partnerships and collaboration. From the Healthy Forest Restoration Act of 2003, the Collaborative Forest Landscape Restoration Program, the National Cohesive Strategy for Wildland Fire Management, the Joint Chiefs Landscape Restoration Partnership, Good Neighbor Authority, and I could go on. Collaboratives on several forests in the Sierras are already working across shared landscapes to reduce wildfire risk and restore healthy, resilient ecosystems. To improve the conditions across shared landscapes, we must rely on partnerships and collaboration, agreeing on our mutual priorities for restoration actions. To do the work, we need multiple tools, techniques, and authorities. You know, stewardship contracting, mechanical thinning, timber harvesting, targeted grazing, integrated pest management, prescribed fire, and managed wildfire are just a series of ways that we can make that happen. We need to use good neighbor authority agreements with our states and tribes and other authorities that help us work collaboratively with tribes, as well as our stewardship contracting authority and all the rest. A remaining challenge is doing the work at the right scale. So this is a difficult issue. The scale of the risks we face is vast and our resources are limited. How can we better match our projects to the needed scale? The first step is to recognize the scale of the risks we face. Take the salmon, where I'm from in the Great Pacific Northwest, as an example, or other migratory species. Salmon face risks ranging from the oceans to the headwater streams and all points between. If we want to have salmon, we need to mitigate the risks by working with partners across these landscapes at the appropriate scale. Or take the risk of wildfire. We spend hundreds of millions of dollars each year placing field treatments across landscapes. If a fire comes, our treatments generally work by letting the firefighters an opportunity to stop the fire from reaching homes and communities. Yet the number of homes and the loss of communities destroyed continues to grow. Why? Because we have a mismatch between the scale of our work and the scale of the risk. One way of scaling up our treatments is by pooling resources through collaboration and shared stewardship. We are also scaling up through the use of larger scale analysis tools. In the past, our projects were scattered across landscapes based on conditions right at a particular location. Now we have advanced fire modeling, advanced watershed modeling, and an increased understanding of whole systems. And it lets us gain the skills to strategically place projects that benefit a much broader area. Moving to a landscape scale of thinking will take practice. It will depend on collaboration and shared stewardship. So let me close with a challenge to you. How can you help natural resource managers figure out the right scale to manage at? How can you take a local study or assessment of a stream reach or a meadow complex and describe it in a way to inform landscape scale actions? You know, given the breadth, the interest, and the diversity of the Natural Areas Association, You just may be the big tent we all need to make shared stewardship work. Thank you for joining together to take on these incredible challenges that have incredible opportunities.
Thank you, Chief Christiansen. We are so fortunate to have you here with us to share what is a really wonderful and successful program already with the Forest Service and its partners. We're happy to be one of them, and we're just thrilled to have you here helping us to kick off our Natural Areas Conference this year. So I have a few questions for you if you have a few more minutes.
You bet.
Wonderful, wonderful. You mentioned that solutions to land stewardship challenges across boundaries and borders needs to be all lands, all hands. I really, really love that phrase. How do non-state, non-federal, and/or non-tribal stakeholders get a seat at the table in a state engaging in a shared stewardship agreement? I'm thinking about large land trusts, for example, and/or county, regional conservation agencies, nonprofits, quasi-governmental groups, or even large private landowners like ranches, timber companies, large private timber companies, or even hunting clubs, which are very popular here in the East.
Yeah, you bet. That's a great question. And you know, that really is the essence and the body of shared stewardship. It's not really a program, it's a way of being. It's how we approach you know, sustaining the nation's forests and grasslands for multiple benefits. So my advice is you know, whoever the entity is, we're trying to build a network. We're trying to, you know, not make it a federal program, a state program, a tribal program, and then you have to go figure out how to knit it all together. We're all in this together. So whether it's your state forester, your state forestry leader, your local forest supervisor in the case of the Forest Service, or regional forester, whoever it might be, you know, just say, hey, we would like to have a voice, have a seat, we have interest. And so it's connecting to wherever it makes sense where you have that starting relationship. And that's what shared stewardship is really about. So we can connect all the parts and the pieces. So it may be different in different states depending on who you know that's connected to this opportunity. It's to be inclusive, certainly not exclusive.
Great. And I assume you're seeing that play out in some of the current agreements. Just
You bet. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Great.
I mean, some may know, but I had 30 years in state natural resources. I worked for state forestry agencies and the state forester in a couple different states. So how to work across boundaries and across ownerships is something that's really important because none of us can solve this alone.
How true. Wonderful. Thank you. Second question, is there a funding source that supports priority management activities that have been identified through your scenario investment planning for partners? Or is shared stewardship more focused on taking existing dedicated funding and reprioritizing how it gets spent across focus landscapes?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Again, it's not this separate program. It's how we really think about how we work together across scale. So it is about our existing funds. You know, we're not going to abandon the way we have to do to maintain our landscapes and our systems. But if we're really going to get focused at making a difference, the random acts of restoration haven't, as I said in my remarks, haven't really worked out at the scale. So we want to get really focused, and we're going to make some choices of how we can schedule over time these opportunities. And I will say, if we can show that we are really effective and we can make a difference together, then Congress and state legislators and other potential private funding sources will notice. I'll leave it there. ... How can we show we can make a difference together?
Okay, Thank you for that. Finally, to what degree do entities get included in the shared stewardship agreements that don't own land? And I'm thinking about academic institutions, for example, within our realm of the Natural Areas Association. That's where great science comes from, science that informs management on the ground. And so is that, you know, are the agreements reaching that broadly?
Certainly. I mean, again, this is about how we build a networked approach to both our knowledge and our priorities and our actions. Mm-hmm. So we're very fortunate to have a research and development arm, mission area within the Forest Service. And we, you know, many of our researchers I know are a part of this conference, and, you know, where the research and the practitioners meet. But we very much have a networked approach in research across the different scales of academic science, and even with our practitioners. So there is not a single source where we're only going to get our science. We need to learn together at scale. So whether it's, you know, your partnership with if you're in academia, your state forestry organization, hopefully there's some strong partnerships with our researchers in Forest Service, and it's creating much more of an integrated network approach is what we really plan for and are seeing, quite frankly, in the shared stewardship approach to managing the collection of our lands together.
Super, thank you. Well, on behalf of the Natural Areas Association, I look forward to watching this program unfold, seeing the successes, the fruits of its labor, and I would anticipate going forward that we'll be excited to communicate a lot of the successes on behalf of all of the partners involved in the initiatives. So thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you for the enthusiasm and really wanting to partner because we all know it's a higher calling of this critical conservation of our natural resources. So we really appreciate the challenge and the opportunity together.
Wonderful.
Have a great conference. Thank you.
Thank you.
That phrase, all lands, all hands, it encapsulates the idea that we're all in this together, working to conserve nature with more challenges facing us than any generation before. The world is changing, the social and political landscape is changing, our climate is changing, but our message hasn't changed. Nature matters more today than maybe ever. And we know that we are more effective, as the chief said, when we work together and when we have citizens, decision makers, and funders in this country and abroad that embrace our work. I know that I, for one, will be keeping all of this front and center in a few weeks when I vote. I hope you will too. Our next two speakers will address the grand scale of the issues Chief Christensen raised from different perspectives. Lania Quinn Davidson, Area Fire Advisor at the University of California Cooperative Extension and the Director of the Northern California Prescribed Fire Council, will discuss the fire problem as a cultural problem. Lania will address recent efforts in fire that are reframing the fire problem as more of a fire opportunity to work together, to innovate, and to understand that the natural role and responsibility that people have for restoring balance in fire. Then Dr. Steve Jackson will present ecological transformation and ecological novelty, past, present, and future. Steve is the director of the Southwest and South Central Climate Adaptation Science Centers of the U.S. Geological Survey in Tucson, Arizona, and he's adjunct professor of geosciences and of natural resources and environment at the University of Arizona. You can certainly leave questions or comments for any of our speakers in the chat, and all of our sessions have a 3-question poll, and we'd love your feedback as you take advantage of the rest of the programming this week. Thanks, and have a great conference.